mentions at UT that it did exist, that it's there, it has a half-life, so it's still basically going down there, and that a lot of waste got stored under there. That's what they do at most of these facilities. But then we went out doing a report on this in more detail, and Chris Oden, his great-grandfather was Benjamin Ellis, and he was the superintendent of facilities for 20 years of all the big UT headquarters campuses here in Austin, Texas. And he had always told him over off Red Bud Trail by the dam that there was a area where it was rods encased in concrete, fluids, barrels, and that they put it in there and walled off these caves. In your own words, tell us about this. Chris Oden, who happens to work for us, we're all doing a report on this. He's like, well, hey, my great-grandfather actually, has even more on this. And this is standard for these facilities built in the 60s and 70s, is they would just go stick it somewhere on state property or on city property. And so if this is indeed true, and I'm sure his grandfather's being accurate, we need to look into this. We need to know about this. Tell us the basics of this, Chris.
Well, basically, to my knowledge, what my grandfather disclosed to me is that for a number of years, they had attempted to get rid of waste in East Austin, and that area was growing very fast. And they'd found a area in the large caves in South Austin where waste was disposed of. It wasn't necessarily my grandfather's idea, but his job was to oversee transportation.
Sure. I mean, we're not throwing him under the bus. I mean, he just knew about it.
Absolutely. And a number of other people did. I remember my grandfather, his son-in-law, telling me the same stories, and he used to explore the caves when he was a kid. And
get closer to that mic for me; it's a little bit low.
He explored the caves when he was a kid, and they had closed them off sometime in the late '60s, early '70s, systematically. I've explored caves in the side of cliffs like Airman's Cave here in Austin. Those that are thin enough to get into it can go for hundreds of yards, if not miles, into the cave network.
There's giant honeycomb. There's underground cenotes. Some of the biggest caves in the U.S. are actually underground. Absolutely. Some of the biggest populations of Mexican brown bats.
Right, and parts of the caves are below the water table. Parts of the caves are above the water table. To my knowledge, that's where a lot of the waste was stored, is above the water table. The area in particular off of Redbud Trail close to Tom Miller Dam was an entrance just like that was above the water table, above where the lake level was, that could be explored for miles.
Now, you told me yesterday that your great-grandfather was concerned or talked about the fact that water sometimes did come in there. Absolutely.
The entrance there was in a ravine that did at one time flow directly into the Colorado River. Since then, concrete bulkheads, massive amounts of dirt work have been done there to cover up those entrances.
So at least they did that?
Yes.
We need to give out a special email later. We'll develop one for whistleblowers on this. Well, let's just make whistleblowers at Infowars.com. Let's make that email right now. It'll be up in the next hour. We need to have construction workers, other people, call us, confirm, so we can have more witnesses to this.
Right. For a long time, the city did say that the mini cave entrances were covered up because of citizens throwing garbage in them, and they showed pictures of piles of trash.
So that was the cover?
That's what I believe was the cover.
But your grandfather said, well, you stay there. We're going to come back in 1 minute, and Lew Rockwell's coming up. Specifically, what your great-grandfather said.
In Texas, Alex Jones.
Okay, Lew Rockwell is coming up to talk about Campaign 2012, what's happening across the board. We're going to have him joining us. Right now, we're going back to Chris Oden, and since we've been looking into this the last day or so, we have dug up the University of Texas admissions, Bill Collier, UT, reactor draws safety questions, Austin American Statesman, 1989. So this has been in the news. And we found links to blurbs dealing with concerns about where the waste was going. And so that's a whole other ball of wax. You're saying your great-grandfather, who was the head of superintendent for facilities, said that, oh, people didn't like it in East Austin, so I guess stuff must have been dumped there somewhere. And so then it moved to what was South Austin, but pretty much is the middle of Austin now.
Exactly. Now it borders a fairly high-end community called Westlake. His exact words were, if you ever wonder why your radio doesn't work well near that part of Austin, it's because there is radioactivity there. I personally have witnessed AM radio not functioning as well as it does in other portions of South Austin. So,
well, sure. If you doubt that, I mean, if you doubt electricity puts off stuff, when you drive under big power lines, your AM cuts out.
Right, and there aren't any power lines in the area except for further west. There is, of course, power generators at the dam.
Let's be specific, though, for people, because we're going to put a map on the nightly news tonight, and you guys went and got video yesterday. Mm-hmm. Where exactly is this? It's
on the southern side of the Colorado River. I would say less than an eighth of a mile from the low water crossing on Redbud Trail. On the west side of the road, geographically, there's probably I'd say a 20-foot to 30-foot deep ravine.
So it's right over by the hula hut?
On the other side of the river.
Yeah, on the other side, across.
Yeah, and on the downstream side of the dam there.
Amazing. And what else did your grandfather say, great-grandfather say?
He did describe a fairly complex amount of construction that went on from the early 50s until the 70s, all over Austin for the UT campuses. He did say that the university couldn't get funds for anything else but land, and that's why it's the largest campus in the United States, and they kept on building up and down, according to him. And he said there's as much going on below ground as there was above ground.
That's why there's so much secret government stuff. And we got onto this when the cyclotron railgun blew up 2 days ago at a UT facility. And that's KXAN, folks. I mean, we're living in like a weird experiment area, aren't we?
Absolutely. I was even shocked to see a fairly large complex or university research complex on the north side of the river, right in the same vicinity, that did have signs posted, restricted access. There's
a map on screen. Where should they blow it up? You're saying restricted access area you saw.
I would say just...
There's the low water crossing right by that.
Just to the northwest of Redbud Isle. I'm sorry, just to the southwest. Move the cursor.
Says it's one of the oldest university reactors too.
I'm sorry, go farther upriver.
Upriver. You can move quicker.
Much farther upriver.
Yep. We'll just do it during them. It's that block over. It's the furthest over right-hand green side.
Right by the Bee Caves Preserve there.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. At 12 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock, where are there? Looking at Bee Caves Preserve text in the middle of the green.
On the mouse, it's 12 o'clock. Right where the bend in the road is.
By Forest View Drive or by Redbud Trail? Right there.
Redbud Trail, right there. Right there. That's where I know that one major cave entrance was. Yep, that looks right.
Oh, we just found it. We just found it on Google Maps. There's the cave right there. Wow, we got the footage tonight for you. InfoWars Nightly News. Lew Rockwell coming up. Thank you so much for your courage.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of massive news coming up today. You know, a drone crashed a few days ago in Maryland. Now they're reporting that all over the country, but also the big report is, again, out of Fox News on the East Coast. People think it's UFOs now as Pentagon drones fly over the highways. They think it's aliens. Kind of like the big surveillance blimps I've seen ABC News say, it must be an alien, and it's a big blimp with no markings on it with propellers and cameras hanging off the bottom. Because government wouldn't be spying on you with big blimps. No, it must actually be E.T., visiting for Reese's Pieces or something. I mean, it's truly over the top, ridiculous that stuff like this is going on. We're going to be breaking that down. We're also researching right now the nuclear reactors. There's 3 of them in Austin. There's almost no news coverage of this, and a big story we're working on of where they've been dumping the waste. We're also going to be getting into the bizarre White House reaction to John Bryson's 3 hit and runs. Well, 2 hit and runs on one group and then another hit and run. A lot of bizarre behavior on that front. We're going to look at the ongoing meltdown in Europe and the incredible announcements that they're going to restrict ATM withdrawals and impose border checks. So people can come into the euro, but when you try to leave, they're going to impose capital controls. TSA is already doing this, trying to take people's silver and gold, asking about wedding rings. This is in the news, downloading what's on your laptop computers. Everything we've seen in third world dictatorships or Nazi Germany. It's amazing. Now, in a moment, we're going to a man who needs no introduction, Lew Rockwell of LewRockwell.com, head of the Austrian School of Economics group, the von Mises Institute. Just an amazing intellectual mind when it comes to research. Former chief of staff for Ron Paul, a great patriot. I want to get him on to look at everything happening in the world, the big news issues, the wars, the euro, the banker bailouts, and obviously out of the gates, get his take on Rand Paul's endorsement of Mitt Romney and why that's created such a firestorm, and get his view on it. But before we do that, I wanted to play just about a minute clip of Ron Paul. And I think Ron Paul, when thinking if he should endorse Romney or not, and Tom Woods has talked about how dangerous that would be. I had the guy that Ron Paul endorsed 4 years ago, the head of the Constitution Party at the time, that candidate. I had him on last night, Chuck Baldwin, to discuss it, and he said, really bad move. Again, Rand can do what he wants, still a great guy. He's fighting drones and the police state and all this other stuff. But if Ron Paul does that, wow, it would be like a nuclear bomb going off, in the words of Chuck Baldwin. I agree. So I want to get the inside intel, if he's been talking to Ron on what's happening, where all this is going in a moment. But first, here is a short clip of Ron Paul when he was conceding that he was going to drop out in 2008, when he talked about endorsing the Constitution Party. Here he is explaining why, when the McCain people called him, he didn't take, even their respectful call, he didn't take their pleas to endorse McCain as a lesser of two evils, and he explains why. The full clip is up at Infowars.com. The headline on the video is Ron Paul should listen. Ron Paul of 2012 should listen to Ron Paul of 2008. Here is a clip of that CNN press conference.
The majority of the American people, even the recent polling shows that 60% of the American people are unhappy with their choices. If you take the total number of Americans and the percentage that register, and then the percentage that vote, and then the percentage that vote for a candidate, you end up electing a president with 32% of the American people. And because they have been more or less conditioned to believe, well, the two candidates are different, and we have to vote for the lesser of two evils, they end up voting, half the people who vote for the president are voting for the lesser of two evils. And so therefore, 16% of the American people essentially are saying, hey, I like this candidate, and they vote for the president. You know, yesterday, I had a phone call, the first phone call that I personally received or had received from anybody in the McCain candidacy, in his campaign. They called, and it was a bit of a surprise to me because their request was that I endorse John McCain today.